Right. Next up, we have award-winning author David Bohm, along with being the author and translator of more than 40 books. He also teaches literature and Nawa at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Before we bring him out, I would like to introduce David's exciting new middle grade graphic novel, The Hero Twins in the Realm of Fright, and in Spanish as Los Gemelos Héroes y Reino del Temor. These newest entries in the Tales of the Feathered Serpent series, retellings of pre-Columbian folklore and mythology. This wonderful graphic novel will be published simultaneously in English and Spanish on May 12th. If anyone has any questions for David, please drop them in the chat so we can address them at the end of the presentation. Now, I'll pass it over to David himself to chat more about the Hero Twins.
Awesome. Thank you, Diego. Hi, everybody. My name is David Bowles. My pronouns are he and him and él in Spanish. As a visual description, this is the first time I've ever done this, but I am a light-skinned Mexican American man with kind of straight hair that's kind of growing down into my eyes. Behind me is a turquoise colored wall in my kitchen with my little coffee station on it. Um, I'm wearing a brown suede jacket and a gray t-shirt. It's really great to be chatting with you guys about this latest book in a project that seems to keep giving and giving and giving. About 8 years ago, the book Feathered Serpent, Dark Heart of Sky, Myths of Mexico was published by Cinco Puntos, which is now an imprint of Lee and Low. And it was intended for a young adult and general audience. The the point of the book was to kind of fill in the gaps in the stacks, if you will, about the stories of pre-Spanish invasion Mesoamerica, the sacred stories and legends and myths that were so prominent and almost completely wiped out by that invasion. And as a young man growing up on the border in the Mexican American community, who was fascinated by mythology, I never got to see any of the mythology of the people who who had lived and whose descendants still live in Central America and Mexico. And it was something that when I got to college and learned that I had kind of been kept from discovering, I doubled down on. And Diego has mentioned that I teach novels, and this project was partly taking a bunch of disparate stories that had been preserved willy-nilly, piecemeal, in different sources, and then translating them from indigenous languages or retelling them and so forth, and then weaving them together into basically a mythological history of Mesoamerica from creation to conquest. And the book was well received and won many awards, but early on it became clear that those stories needed to be told for a younger audience as well. And so that was the genesis of the idea of doing graphic novel adaptations of key stories in that book. So this series Tales of the Feathered Serpent launched with the first volume, Rise of the Halfling King, which retells the story of the city of Uxmal and the half-elven boy who overthrew a dictator there and ushered in 100 years of peace in that area. It's a really fantastic story with lots of adventure and fun. And we followed it up with the Hero Twins and the Magic of Song, which adapts from the really essential text of Popol Vuh, the story of the hero twins. So it's a story or a couple of figures that exist in multiple indigenous cultures, but definitely are perhaps best known in Mexico and Guatemala from their stories in the Popol Vuh. And so their origin story came out in that second volume. And this third one is going to take us on perhaps their most famous journey into the underworld to rescue their father and uncle. And you can see there on the cover the really unique and special artwork of my collaborator on the series, Charlene, who is actually my daughter. She's a 28-year-old Chicana who, you know, does all kinds of illustration from book covers to comics and so forth. And I have had the good fortune to work with her on this series, and that collaboration is something special because authors don't often get to collaborate with their own children. She has done a really, really fantastic job. And you'll see on the cover the hero twins in disguise. They're summoned to the underworld by the lords of Xibalba, the dukes and duchesses, who do not realize that these two young demigods are actually half Xibalban themselves. In the previous book, we see how their mother escaped the underworld, um, pregnant with them, and then gave birth to them in the overworld. Um, and so they are the inheritors both of the kind of like green divine magic of the maze gods who are there to, help prepare the world for the emergence of humanity, and the darker magic of the underworld gods. And they are able to wield those two sources of magic to bring balance back. Because what's happened is in the underworld, which has a purpose, the purification of human souls so that they can pass beyond after their deaths, the leaders of that place have grown cruel and mean, and it's up to the heroes to kind of put them in their place and restore balance, rescue their father, bring their mother back. It's just a really, really great rollicking ride. To do this, when I was writing the script, I went back to the Popol Vuh, back to the Quiché Maya original, in which the boys are hilariously sarcastic. So much fun to read, even in just the original dialogue. Even if you just translate it word for word, it's hilarious. And so taking that and creating these kind of snarky, fun, admittedly demigods, but preteen kind of demigods, and using Charlene's unique visual style to create something that'll be resonant with kids who love graphic novels and comics and animation and so forth was a real thrill. And one of the things that we were able to do was to foreground things that in the original are just assumed. And so in the Popol Vuh, when the story is told, all of the listeners to the story before the Spanish invasion knew the role that their mother, Ishkik or Lady Blood, played in preparing them and teaching them the ways of the underworld, and preparing them, and everybody knew what her role would be once they won. But those are often kind of like left behind. So we foregrounded that. If we look at the next slide, you'll see some of the great interior art that uh, that Charlene put together, and you can see how she uses a lot of the kind of tropes of modern manga and anime and Disney kinds of things, but grounds them in the actual art of Mesoamerica. And to do that, she would study the art, look at the existing codices. We visited a lot of these areas in southern Mexico to look at the ruins and to look at statues and so forth. And then, she just found a way to kind of filter that through her own style to create something that was really visually compelling for young readers. So, yeah, coming out really soon. We've got another one in the works, volume four. And we're just really excited about bringing these really essential sacred stories and legends to a wider audience using the modern vernacular. And the books come out in English and Spanish. I write the script in English and then translate into Spanish. So you will see here Los Gemelos Héroes y el Reino del Temor. Um, for those readers that you service who need the Spanish edition or would really love it, it's there available for you. And it's a great tool also for families to be able to read the series together, or for people who are learning either Spanish or English to have a resource. That's really great. So yes, the The series has been written up in the New York Times and other places. It's doing really, really well. So I encourage you to take a look at it. I think it'll be appealing not only for young readers, but for adults as well. So thank you so much for your time.